Hello, my name is June Clemens, and I'm here today to discuss with you about a program that I am currently a part of. It is called the Rebirth Program. Now, the Rebirth Program is a rehabilitation program designed to help inmates, usually youths that are between the ages of 16 to 25 years of age, who are caught up in the oppressive cycle of being in the federal penal system to become law abiding working citizens again. Let's take a look at one of the main reasons why so many young people end up in the federal penal system. Did you know nearly 60% of all troubled teens who end up in the penal system have some type of learning disability as a child that went unchecked? By the time a young man or young lady reaches their teens, the foundation for them ending up in jail or deceased has already been formed. With most of the school systems being either understaffed or some teachers who are not properly trained to recognize if a child should have a learning disability, or if the programs that were available in the past either get cut by a third in their funding or either get defunct altogether, teachers may not be able to properly help every child. A child's environment also plays a part in how the child ends up in the situation that they end up. If a parent has absolutely no idea that his son or daughter, his or her son or daughter, has a learning disability, they're not going to be able to do much help either. Most parents, most of them are single parents. They work 2 to 3 jobs, and a lot of times they're not even at home with the children to help them with their homework or to make sure that their child reads a book. Usually, it always ends up the TV or video games end up being the babysitter, and that's not good. Also, nowadays, young people are more influenced, far more now than they were maybe 20, 30 years ago. It only takes one person that has negative intent to lead a whole bunch of other children into trouble, and then they end up in jail. On the average, due to a survey that was taken by the administrative staff at the Rebirth Program, roughly over 45% of the young men that are in prison now, that are in between the ages of 16 to 25, was discovered that they had some type of learning disability. And a third of those had these disabilities at birth. They all end up coming back as repeat offenders because when you end up in jail, even if it's for a first offense, you get stigmatized. Once you're stigmatized and released back into general society, most people are not going to hire you because you have a record now. So some of them, they may end up getting lucky and maybe finding a low-end job to work. But most of them usually end up going back to jail because they end up breaking the law again because they're trying to feed themselves or trying to feed their families. And I'm not saying that it's correct. I'm not saying that it's right. But this is the reality of what happens to these young people. And with these young people, most of them have problems learning. Like I said, they either have ADHD, ADD, or dyslexia, or Asperger's syndrome, or a combination of any of the four. So the Rebirth Program was developed to be able to try to help these young people get back into general society for them to be law-abiding citizens. let me explain how the Rebirth Program works. The Rebirth Program works in this fashion. First, before you can even become an applicant of the Rebirth Program, you have to go through a series of assessments, uh, behavioral assessments, psychological assessments, as well as learning assessments to see exactly where you are as a person, to find out whether or not if this program will even help you. Now, once the applicants have met the criteria of all the assessments that have been designed, then they are placed on a waiting list so that way they can enter into the program. Usually, when they enter into the program, they're usually nearly, I say, about a year to 2 years before they're released. This is when we try to make sure that we teach them to help themselves. Now, as I stated earlier, the majority of the applicants that come into the Rebirth Program, they have a learning disability, or they never finished receiving their high school diploma. So the first thing that we have to do, we have to make sure that we give them a chance to earn their high school diploma or GED. This is where the class Basic Literacy 101 comes into play. Basic Literacy 101 is a series of tests that each applicant has to take. Now, before they take these tests, they are taught how to read and write and do simple mathematics and understand geography and understand basic science and also understand basic humanities and various different histories. The first class that an applicant takes is Basic Literacy, and Basic Literacy 101 is reading. In the reading class, they'll learn noun-verb agreement, they'll learn vocabulary, spelling, they learn what their adjectives and adverbs, and they'll learn how to write sentences, and they basically are taught how to read, reading fluency. After several weeks, it usually takes up to at least 8 weeks for an applicant, depending on their level of how to read or their level of learning capacity. Then they will be given a quiz, and if once they pass that quiz, then they go on to the next segment of basic literacy, which is math. It's not really any real rush or time limit, because there are some people who cannot do things uh, in a quick manner. They're given all the time that they need because, well, I mean, they have nothing but time because they're sitting in the penal system. Now, being the fact that they're in the penal system, they cannot have access to the general internet, which is basically the World Wide Web. So there will be computer terminals that will be set up in the prison library for these students to be able to do their work and be able to save their work to these particular terminals. And as trainers slash instructors gather up the work each day, now I'm not saying that all of the information is left to the instructors. They're also being taught how to use the computer and how to use different types of software. They're taught how to write sentences, both with their handwriting and as on the computer board. It is a fun class for a lot of the students, and they really enjoy it. So that's my program, and thank you for listening.